Welcome to today's meal prep. We are making a teriyaki salmon. I'm gonna walk you through the steps that I do and how I separate everything to keep it nice and fresh for the week. So salmon is a little higher in the fat content for fish, but it's also super flavorful with teriyaki. So if you need to spice things up and get away from all the chicken, I would suggest salmon. So I like to break everything up into separate parts. This allows me to make sure things are cooked through and also to make sure it's not overcooked because I'm gonna be reheating this all week. So I already started with some broccoli, which I found, and some beans, and I just saute them in a little bit of either sesame oil or peanut oil, whichever you like. And then for my salmon, I just sprinkle with a little bit of ginger in a sesame oil, and I bake it, this one's already come pre-sliced, but I bake it a little undercooked so that when I add it to my stir fry for my teriyaki, it can also cook through. So remember, you are gonna be eating this all week, so you don't want everything to be too tough or too gooey. One of my favorite greens for any Asian cuisine is bok choy. So I just cut off the ends, make sure it's nice and washed, added it into a pan right now with a little bit of sesame oil. And we're just gonna let those wilt down a little bit. They don't need to be too soggy or too cooked, but we just want them to wilt to be the base of our teriyaki dish. So there's a lot of opinions on soy. Soy is not a scary thing. You should not be afraid of it. But yes, some of the soy products out there are higher in content, especially of sodium for soy sauce and other options. So I'm gonna stick with my coconut amino acids. It tastes exactly like soy without it. You can buy it at most any grocery store. So that's gonna be our lead for our sauce. So that's my little bit of soy alternative. I also have hoisin sauce, makes it a little sweeter, maybe a little gooier. This recipe, you can either use peanut oil or sesame oil or a little bit of both. So I love that nutty taste of peanut oil, but it does burn really fast, so make sure you're cautious once you're adding it in with all your other products. Going into our sauce as well, and I'll show you, is honey, any sort of sweetener content you want. So I chose honey, but you can also choose coconut sugar, date syrup, or maple syrup. So you can hear our bok choy just sizzling up in the background while I start to add everything in. I'm gonna make a little bit extra sauce because I have other proteins in my fridge that I may wanna have teriyaki with this week besides the salmon. So as our bok choy is getting nice and wilted, we'll start on our sauce in a separate dish. Again, I'm gonna add a little bit more than normal today. So it says about 1/4 of a cup of our soy sauce, which is our coconut amino acids today. So I'm gonna add about a cup. Going in with that as well, a couple tablespoons of your hoisin sauce. Again, I'll add all this in my notes. You know, I love my own style of measuring. So if you love to use measuring utensils, the notes will have it in there. And then we're gonna start with our honey. This is gonna get a little gooey. Woo. If you don't want it as sweet, that's okay too. We're adding some of our sesame oil. And then our dry spices. So the recipe calls for garlic. Make sure it's my garlic. Yep. I always like to add a little bit of ginger. You can do ground or fresh, but any of my Asian cuisines, I just love the taste of ginger. So we're gonna add a little bit right in there. Remove our bok choy. Nice and wilted. Again, you're gonna be reheating, so you wanna make sure that it's got a little umph in it. So now that we have our base of our spices for our teriyaki, we're gonna just stir everything up. It's gonna look pretty thick right away right now with the hoisin and the honey. But the best part is we are gonna lighten it up a little bit. We're gonna add some water, and then to thicken it back up, you can add cornstarch, but I choose tapioca starch or tapioca flour instead. So right now it's not over any heat. I'm just mixing this up. I'll add my water with a little bit of the cornstarch or tapioca starch. So it's best to mix the tapioca flour or starch out of the dish. So mix it in a smaller pan first so it gets a little gooey, and then add it into my sauce. So most stores will either carry tapioca flour, tapioca starch, or those little tapioca pearls, which you can grind up to also use. So right into my sauce, I'm gonna add this in as a thickening agent. We have the water in, we have everything boiling on low to start, and this is just to make the sauce like nice and gooey, thicken it up just a little bit. So it depends on how much water you've added and how thick you like your sauce, but I went ahead and went in with about 1 tablespoon of tapioca starch. So we're gonna bring the sauce up to a low boil first, let it thicken, maybe bubble for a few seconds, maybe a minute, and then bring it back down on low to cool and thicken up. So a lot of these steps can be done a little easier if you have a wok, but unfortunately I don't, so I'm kind of making it work for me. So right now I'm gonna mix everything, then I'm gonna add my sauce and just do a quick mix in the pan, heat it up, and I'm ready to eat. So my salmon goes in, again, just lightly undercooked so that it can heat up on the stove. Again, you can make it as you like. I'm gonna add my bok choy that's just lightly wilted. I'm gonna add a scoop of this broccoli and then some of the beans as well. Ooh. So just going into a separate bowl right now, because like I said, I save everything separately so that it doesn't get over sauced and it doesn't get ooey by the end of the week. And then my sauce has thickened up pretty nicely. You want it to kind of dribble down. So I'm just gonna take a nice spoonful of my sauce, sprinkle it in here. Again, you can just eat it as is, but I just love the quick like reshake of the meal before I eat it. So we're gonna take our 3 ingredients, our veggies, our sauce, and our protein, add it back into the pan, shake things up for our meal, plate it, and you're on your way for dinner. Again, you can eat this cold, hot, you can make the sauce a little thicker, add it for a dip instead, but my greatest suggestion for meal prep, keep it separate so it lasts all week, keep it sealed safely in your fridge, and you'll be a very happy camper.